All right, Ben. So in this section, we're going to take a quick look at the Bias Plus report for Week 16, see how we did, and then see what we have to say about the games. Man, some surprises last week. Some real surprises. All right, let's start off at the top. Jacksonville, Atlanta. The Bias Plus was in Atlanta's favor. And what do we have on that? That was a yes. Atlanta did win that game, right?
Yes, that is correct. And again, or before we get started, I really thought, again, this is the second week in a row when I felt really good about my picks. And I felt super good about them because I went with the bias almost every time on the games that I lost. And the bias and I both lost just about the same games. So I'm not exactly sure what to say about that other than any given Sunday, the NFL is the greatest sports league in the world, and teams can win at any time, at any moment, regardless of whether they have anything going on or not. Now, that being said, obviously, I did win the Atlanta game. I did pick Atlanta along with the bias. They're just better than Jacksonville. The wheels are falling off. They fired Tom Coughlin. This guy, when he was the Giants quarterback, I loved him. I thought they needed all the discipline they could get. I come from the old school of coaching where I think discipline is necessary. But this dude went overboard, man. He went way overboard. Like, they said he fined so many players, and a lot of them for some of the smallest things, that even the NFL office was beginning to say, yo, what's up with this dude? And finally, because a lot of people were like, well, why didn't they just wait to the end of the season and fire him? He had to go. He's really rubbing players the wrong way. And that kind of makes Jalen Ramsey and Leonard Fournette kind of look like they knew what they were talking about when they were saying that there's somebody in the front office, or they just kind of said the front office in general. I don't think they named him, but that they weren't on the player's side, so to speak.
When I pulled up that list, the three games on Saturday on that list. So let's talk about them real quick. We're talking about Houston, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, New England, and the Rams against the Niners. Houston, Tampa Bay. Houston came up 23-20. Jameis had 335 yards passing. Again, they don't mention his turnovers. That's a separate category. What did you have about that game? Anything in particular?
Okay, here's the crazy thing. I picked the Buccaneers to win. They should have won. They could have won. Deshaun Watson was really off. 19 for 32 is not good at all. 184 yards is way below what he should be doing, especially when their running game is mediocre at best. He threw an interception also. Carlos Hyde, talking about their running game, only had 27 yards on the ground. He did have a short touchdown. But the Texans defense sacked Jameis 3 times, intercepted him 4 times, and got a fumble recovery and run one of the interceptions back for a touchdown. So there you have it. Texans defense wins over Jameis Winston, because that's basically who the game was against or between.
Buffalo, New England, 24-17. New England, they had a bias plus score in their favor of 10. So the bias held up in that particular case.
Yes, and this particular game, I went against the bias because I loved the Buffalo Bills, and I thought this was a game that they could really win. The first game they played against the Patriots was very close. This one actually was close. They won by Patriots only won by a touchdown. The Bills defense recovered a fumble, but they weren't able to sack or intercept Tom Brady. Again, that's why they're at the top of the turnover differential, because they protect the ball. Josh Allen. Oh man, very inaccurate game. Now he did throw some good passes. He did score 2 touchdowns. He did throw for 2 touchdowns, but he only went for 208 yards, and the rest of his day was pretty mediocre. And he had his issues also. Got sacked 3 times, and just really had a tough day. Brady didn't have a great day either. Threw for 271. He did throw a touchdown pass, but the story of this game was on the ground. And, you know, every time people decide to start trying to find things about the Patriots where they're lacking or things that are going to be their stumbling block, somehow, some way, they turn it back up. And for them to have as much success on the ground as they did against the Buffalo Bills defense, teams should start to worry. Teams should start to worry that the New England Patriots are still around. They can still run the ball on you. And, you know, if Brady doesn't have a great day, they can still get it done on the ground. And if they're not getting it done on the ground, they've still been winning through the air. Games might be close, but they're getting it done. Sony Michel went for 96. Rex Burkhead, of all people, only got 20 on the ground, scored a rushing touchdown, but he had 77 yards in receptions. He's a fullback.
The return of the fullback. You know, I love fullbacks, man.
The fullback is back.
Check song.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, I mean, that's your power game right there. Especially, you know, a guy like Burkhead, kind of like Juszczyk, you can put him in a tight end position, in a fullback position, or you can put him in single back and let him bang on some people. But they were talking about the fullback that the Patriots, I guess, kind of recently brought into the fold. And this guy on that touchdown run that Burkhead had, he was knocking people down, man. He was really a big part of that whole little explosion. You saw when Burkhead like kind of crashed through the 2 guys and like broke out into the open and scored the touchdown. He had a fullback in there helping him with that dirty work early on, and then all of a sudden things just opened up. He was free to the goal line, man.
And the funny thing is, in Belichick fashion, that guy's a linebacker by trade. He's not really a fullback. He's a linebacker that they use in short yardage situations, and the guy gets the job done.
Absolutely. Lakers, Los Angeles.
That's later tonight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Check my watch. I don't miss that game.
But basketball today, no football. I'm like, Christmas, no football?
Christmas is basketball day.
That's a basketball day, man. So we'll have to, when we wrap this up, we'll have to get on to that, man. Start checking out some round ball. But Rams at Niners. Niners came out 34-31. Niners were a 10.4 bias plus favorite in that. So the bias held up. You went with the bias, right?
Yes, I went with the bias, got the win. First of all, it would have been hard to pick the Rams after that debacle in Dallas. So, you know, but the Niners are just a much better, more well put together team than the Rams are at this point. They have direction. They seem to know where they're going. They have better balance. What are you going to say, man? They're supposed to win that game. You're supposed to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Next up, we talked about Jacksonville. Let's talk about Baltimore, Cleveland, where Baltimore was an 18.8 bias plus score in their favor in that game. So they were definitely supposed to win that game.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. We're talking about the class of that division and probably the class of the NFC at this point against a team that's just rumbling, bumbling, and stumbling. So I don't know.
Jackson's listed as the passing leader at 238 yards and the rushing leader at 103.
Amazing.
Amazing.
The only scary part of that game was Ingram went down with a little calf injury. the first thing I thought of was, oh my God, that looks like an Achilles. But if it was an Achilles, we'd have heard about it by now. So he's just got a sore calf. He'll probably sit out next week, and he should be fine.
All right. Next up, we have the New Orleans, Tennessee game, where New Orleans was a 1.5 favorite in that, and they came out with a 10-point win, 38-28. But early on, it looked like Tennessee wanted to do something in that game.
Kudos to the Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill and their coaching staff. They've really improved their team over the way they were last year. I really like Tennessee. I like the uniforms. I like everything about them that I said I didn't like about them in the beginning of the year. that Tannehill move, I'm telling you, that Tannehill move changed their entire organization. It's crazy. They are still a viable playoff contender. It's going to come down to this last week. Hopefully for them, Derrick Henry will be ready to go. And we'll talk about the lineups of games next week. But the Texans got to watch out. Did they clinch the division or they clinched a spot? I think they clinched a spot. I don't know if they clinched the division.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The Titans can sneak in there. And if they do, I will say that they have deserved it because they have really, really improved their team and played much better.
Titans. Okay. Where were we here? Carolina. Indianapolis. 3.4 bias plus score in the favor of the Colts. And it was 38-6. Looked like it was supposed to be a closer game. Not quite.
No, not quite. And there's not a whole lot I can say about Carolina. I think I said last week they should be in full rebuild mode at this point. The Colts are not great, but they really did the thing to the Panthers. I mean, they got a lot of stuff they got to work on. They got to deal with what they're going to do with Cam. They got to come up with another quarterback. Their defense is a shambles. Kuechly's on his last leg. Yeah, that wasn't a hard pick at all.
And then I think his name is Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, Nyheim Hines.
We're going to talk a little bit about him in the commentary section because
Okay.
I put him up there, man. When I saw him take off, I was like, uh-oh, who is that guy? No doubt about it. It was impressive, man, what he did. All right. Let's see now. Cincinnati, Miami. Cincinnati was favored 3.1. They were both in the negative, which is why that's in the red there. Miami came up on top 38-35 in overtime. And I'm going to save this till later, but, wow. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 419 yards. Fitzmagic.
Yeah. Yeah. I beat the bias on this one. I took Miami, mainly because they were home and mainly because of their head coach, Brian Flores. I really like this guy. I talked about him before. I like his energy. I like the direction that he has the team going in. I think that the team is really buying in to, what he's trying to do and what his staff is trying to do. So I think that's great, especially only getting that short chance in Denver and getting fired. I think he's found a home, and I think he will improve that team. Cincinnati's still tanking for Tua, if you ask me. I don't. They're tanking for somebody. I don't know if it's Tua anymore, but
I didn't think so because
I mean they played hard.
But the overtime.
Yeah, no. They played hard. It's just it's the old trust the process type tank. You know what I mean? It's like we just don't have the people to hang in there. So we're going to play with what we have, and if we win, hey, all right. And if we lose, Hey, all right.
Oh man. All right. Pittsburgh, New York Jets. Pittsburgh was favored in that one. And yet it looks like the Jets, 16 to 10.
What a debacle. You know, I, I really like Mike Tomlin. I really do. But remember how when the Eagles weren't doing so well under Andy Reid his last year or two, and we kind of got used to and then tired of his old I got to do a better job speech. Although Mike Tomlin doesn't use those exact words, his post-game speeches after losses is starting to sound, I mean, he's a lot more eloquent than Andy used to be, but he's pretty much like, we didn't deserve it. We didn't play well at all. That's really obvious. You know, he's he sounds good saying it, but you're talking about losses, dude. You're talking about losses to the New York Jets. Let me see something. Devin Hodges, 11 for 17, 84 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Now, he got benched in the middle of that. And then Cuckoo Bird comes in, still probably feeling the effects of getting hit in the head with a helmet. He gets injured. He goes out. He's done for the season. And Hodges has to go back in. Right when he was practicing his duck calls for the offseason, they tell him to get back in there. You know?
Did you see what's the guy that they brought back in, the one that got hit with the helmet? What's his
Mason
name?
Rudolph.
Did you see him on the sideline grimacing like, oh,
Dude,
like,
he wants no smoke. He's done with this season. He's done with this season.
he might be done with football.
He might be done with football. He might be.
be.
Now, supposedly he has a legitimate injury, but still, he wasn't ready. He was getting put in that game and having Hodges benched for him was the last thing on his mind. Trust me. So that turned out to be real ugly. Sam Darnold, on the other hand, didn't do much better. 16 for 26, 174, threw 4 touchdowns. That was a hard game to watch. It really was. What's his name? Le'Veon Bell did absolutely nothing. I know he can't wait for this season to end. That was an ugly game. And somehow
72 yards for Bell.
How much?
72.
72.
Very quiet 72.
Okay. Well, I don't
He
think
came to the game in Pittsburgh colors.
Yeah, that was yeah. I think he averaged like 2-point-something yards per carry though.
Yeah,
So,
you're probably right about that.
He got a lot of volume as far as carries is concerned, probably because they were holding on to a lead and they just hugged it and held on.
The next game, the Giants against the Washington team that needs to change their name. Giants were favored by a very minuscule 1.1 score, a bias plus score in their favor. And that game went to overtime. They won by, 6 points. I guess they scored in overtime, and then that was pretty much it, man. But Saquon, Jones, Golden Tate showing up all in the stat sheet for your boys there. What's up?
Yes, wonderful game. That's why I got my hat on. I really love Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones is our future. He threw for almost 400 yards. He threw 5 touchdown passes. Oh, well, it was only Washington. I don't hear that. He threw 5 touchdown passes and took him down for the winning score in overtime. That's business there. He took care of business. That's my man. You know, Golden Tate come up big after going out with injuries earlier in the season and then coming back to kind of cement himself as the number 1 receiver over there. And the guy who I said who had emerged as possibly the number 1 receiver of the future, Slayton, actually was out with injury. So that made it tougher on Danny Dimes, and he still got it done. Threw to an unknown what's his name? Caden Smith, unknown tight end, because Ingram is out. This guy was distributing the ball all over the place. I believe I read that several different receivers had like 4 catches apiece. That probably includes Saquon. Great game for them. I don't care if they were playing Doherty. That's a great game for them, and I am proud of my team.
All right. Should be. All right. What do we have next here? Let's take a quick look. Detroit, Denver. Denver favored by 2.2 bias plus score, and Denver took them 27-17 with Drew Lock, Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay had one run in that thing, man. He sidestepped a couple steps inside the line of scrimmage and took off, man, and people were grasping at his fumes when he took off, man. He was out, man. But yeah, the bias held up on that one. Which way did you go?
I went with the bias. I like Denver. Superior defense against a lackluster offense with a 4-string quarterback that just cannot get it done, and a defense that's a shambles. So that was a pretty easy one for me also. Also, Denver was at home, so.
All right, Oakland, LA Chargers. I told you I did not trust the Chargers 1 iota. They were favored by a bias plus of over 7 points, and Oakland took that game 24-17.
As the game went on, I remembered your "I don't trust the Chargers" quote. And it was ringing in my ears for the entire game. And I was like, this is a game I was supposed to pick right. This is a game I was supposed to win. And it wasn't that the Raiders look so great. It's just that the Chargers look so bad. And Phillip Rivers, who after the game declared that he wants to continue to play, I have no words for this guy. He's done. Stick a fork in him. Really. The only bright spot for the Chargers was Melvin Gordon. He didn't do great, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns. Rivers is finished. No touchdown passes. Threw the ball 39 times and couldn't get it in the end zone. Derek Carr, on the other hand, looks good for the future of the Raiders in in Las Vegas. 26 for 30, 291, threw a touchdown, and ran in a touchdown. So, Derek Carr, good for you.
They had a picture of the Oakland Raiders stadium in Vegas. They said it looks like a spaceship.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's gonna rival Jerry World, huh?
Could be. Next time we have a convention in Vegas, I have to try to get over there and take a look at that. Dallas, Philadelphia. Dallas had the bias plus in their favor with a score of 6.3. Philadelphia won 17-9. Carson Wentz 319 yards to 79. Michael Gallup 98 yards.
Michael Gallup. He had 98 yards in receiving.
Yes, he did.
Good for him, because Amari Cooper, well, I don't know. It's 4th down. You're in 4-down territory. You got to get a first, and you just walk off the field. There's a question as to whether someone substituted him out or whether he just walked off and they substituted somebody in. The word I'm hearing is tap out. Something's wrong with Amari Cooper. I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe he got his hopes up really high for this season and things just aren't working out the way he wants. But he hasn't looked himself the last few weeks, even in the games that they won. He's not getting the amount of targets he was getting before, and the targets he is getting, Dak hasn't looked good. Obviously, Dak is playing with a bad shoulder. Very lackluster, 25 for 44, 265 yards, but again, could not throw the ball into the end zone. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, had a really good game. I think did you say his stats?
No, I didn't.
Okay. 31 for 40, not bad. 319 yards, a touchdown to a bunch of no-name receivers, which is wonderful. Miles Sanders, Penn State.
Saquon Jr.
Saquon Jr., Saquon's old backup, is proving himself to be quite the NFL running back. Carried the ball 20 times for 79 yards, scored a touchdown on the ground, caught 5 passes for 77 yards. Last week I mentioned his name in the same breath with guys like James White, who are with the Patriots, but he's better than James White because he can get the ball outside on run plays. He can run between the tackles. He's shifty. He makes people miss. He has great speed, and he can catch the ball. And when you get him the ball in space, obviously he can do a lot of wonderful things. He had 156 total yards. 156 total yards. An Eagle. Miles Sanders. And one last thing, because I'm always getting on Eagle fans. I'm going to say something good about your team because I'll hardly ever say anything good about you. But Eagles came to play last week. They came to play. It didn't matter that all the receivers were hurt. It didn't matter. None of that mattered. It didn't matter what the Cowboys did the week before against the Rams. None of that mattered. They came out there prepared and determined to win that game. And they won that game.
There's no doubt that on that particular day, Wentz was the better quarterback.
Yes. But I got to give Dak a little pass because he's got a bad AC joint. That hurts, man. That hurts. He's obviously wincing and playing in pain, but they declared him healthy, and they know if they're going to do anything, it's got to be with him. So, so I give him a little pass.
I don't know, man. Who's their backup? They have a decent backup, don't they?
I don't know. Do they?
I think they do, as a matter of fact. I'll double check and see who that is. But
you can't play a backup in a game of that magnitude.
Well, again, he looked bad, and he was almost benchable. So, as far as I was concerned,
it's a big game. If they're going to, I think in a game like that, they're like, well, I'm going to live and die with my best and hope for the best. But they got thoroughly outplayed on both sides of the ball. So really didn't come down to that, I don't think.
I just saw, and well, I will say this much. His receivers did not help him. Okay.
No, they didn't. That's what I'm saying.
And it's funny because they were trying to tout the Eagles defense, but I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my wife, an Eagle fan, and I'm saying, I've seen in this game at least 4 passes where the receiver was wide open and Dak just didn't hit him. So you can tell the defense if you want to, but if that's either a healthy Dak or an Aaron Rodgers, for example, and they got people open like that in your secondary, you're torched.
I agree with you 100%.
So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. Arizona, Seattle. You poo-pooed that as a possible intriguing game. I really had a funny feeling that Arizona was going to come to number one. It's a division game. Number 2, you got the 2 mobile quarterbacks. The mobile quarterback thing is really just changing the dynamic of the way teams are playing. And as I mentioned in the previous segment, in an interview with Cliff Kingsbury, they showed a replay of one particular play, and the formation and the play was straight out of the Ravens playbook. So I've been actually putting the word out that I think that there is emulation going on across the league where, they're looking at the Ravens and going, man, this really is making a difference. And when you got a quarterback, let's say like Wentz, I don't think Dak is as good at that, but he is somewhat mobile when he's healthy. But if you have a quarterback, and I wondered even in the Minnesota Green Bay game, if you look and see at some point, one of them 2 guys line up in the pistol, handing the ball off or pulling it back out of their belly and taking it around the end, especially in a crucial situation. I don't see that for most quarterbacks that you run it too much. But in a crucial situation where you can have that level of an advantage, it's a great opportunity to have. So Arizona did the thing. The bias plus was pointing to Seattle, so I took that one on the chin. And consequently, Arizona Cardinals were the bias plus buster of the week.
Yeah, and well deserved. Well deserved. They scored 27 points on the Seahawks, and their defense came through. They sacked Russell 5 times and recovered a fumble.
They have Patrick Peterson back in that secondary now.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson has actually had a little better season, I think, than he had last year. Right when people were starting to talk kind of bad about him, he put together himself a nice game. They put him on DK Metcalf, which I thought was interesting. Instead of Lockett, who is, for all intents and purposes, the number 1 receiver. They put him on DK, probably because they feel like DK is the more dynamic of the two. Lockett may be faster, but not by much. And Metcalf is obviously bigger and stronger. And he shut him down. He caught no passes. 0. DK Metcalf. I started this guy in fantasy. 0 receptions. And Lockett
no receptions? Really?
None.
None?
And Lockett only had 1.
Wow.
That's half your offense. And then the running backs go down.
Yeah.
That I mean, if Carson doesn't go down, maybe it's a different game. But once the Cardinals realized that he had to throw, it was all she wrote, man. They were all over him. Oh, and kudos to Brett Hundley. Brett Hundley
came
in. Aaron Rodgers' old backup. Didn't have a lot of success when he had to play in Green Bay, but showed some flashes. Came out there, and I almost couldn't figure out if it was him or Kyler Murray.
Running that air raid, man.
Doesn't Murray wear number 1?
I forget what he wears.
He wears number 1, and Brett Hundley wears number 7. So it almost looked like the same number, but I'm like, but he's too tall, to be Kyler Murray. I mean, he ran that offense really, really well. Really well. He only had to throw the ball 4 times, and he ran for like 35 yards on scrambles and stuff. So the real story of that game for the Cardinals was Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake, fantasy owners. Kenyon Drake, put him high on your running back list for the draft next year in fantasy. Kenyon Drake is the real deal.
166 yards rushing.
24 carries. Cliff Kingsbury, my man. 24 carries for his running back. 166 and 2 touchdowns. That's amazing.
It could be another reason DK didn't get any passes because Russell didn't have the ball.
No, he had it enough. He got sacked 5 times.
That's another reason he didn't get any passes.
Believe me, if I had the hurry stats down here,
yeah,
he was all over. They were all over him.
Very good game. I was really glad to see that. Went back and saw that. Last game of the weekend, Kansas City Chiefs, Chicago Bears. Kansas City looked good, looked easy. That was they were favored by a bias plus score of 8.3. Score was 26-3. Kansas City. The Bears. You ready for this? Trubisky'd it up a little bit, and not just on Trubisky. I think the Bears in general, Trubisky'd it up a little bit.
Yeah, I guess they're out of it playoff-wise now because Minnesota and Green Bay are just so far ahead of them in their division. They don't really have a chance at anything. I don't want to say they mailed it in, but Kansas City really had it going. Shady was a healthy scratch for this game. So I think they held him out to make sure they had a full complement of backs going into the playoffs. Damian Williams, who had been injured, came back and had a really good game. And they played a couple other backs too, so they spread it around a little bit. And Mahomes is Mahomes. I mean, man, they're going to be dangerous. I tell you, I can't call it, man. This is going to be something in the playoffs.
Mahomes, Brady, Jackson. Who's the fourth quarterback that in the AFC that you want to throw in there with those names?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I wish I could throw Josh Allen in there. I'm sure there's somebody a little bit more dynamic than him. Tannehill's going to be a problem if Tennessee can pull it off next week. Yeah, that's about it. Those are your top guns.
Yeah.
Oh, and Deshaun.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Can't forget that. No doubt about it. All right. So for the week, the Bias Plus was 9 for 16. That's taking into account the tie that we had at 0-0 between Houston and Tampa Bay. I took that as a loss. There was no way I could win that with a tie. So 9 for 16 is 56%. A little surprising. The bigger surprises was probably the Cardinals, Seattle. That was a big surprise. The Eagles over Dallas. I don't know if that was a big surprise, but they were not favored.
Yeah, considering the rivalry, I would say that wasn't a surprise, considering the rivalry.
Didn't trust the Chargers worth for darn, and they came through on the distrust thing for me. Cincinnati couldn't handle the Dolphins, so they were favored, but you had to figure they were both in the negative. Yeah.
And the Steelers losing.
Right, exactly.
Right. So that's a bunch of surprises. There's usually you have like 2-3 surprises. That's a bunch of surprises. And I was 9 for 16 also. So, and I didn't have a tie to I straight lost that, John.
All right. Well, that wraps up the review of week 16 of the 2019 NFL season. Next up is the Bias Plus report for week 17, also known as
the matchup show.
A matchup show. All right, Benny, in this section, we're going to do the Bias Plus report for week 17 of the 2019 season, the final regular season weekend of the NFL schedule. It's the final game, man.
You gonna get all melancholy on me now again?
Christy, man.
Oh, come on, man. Believe me, the playoffs are going to be stunning. The playoffs are going to be great. I guarantee it.
I just picture a future where we're so hungry for football, we'll be tuning into the XFL.
Oh, God. Now you're making me sick to my stomach now.
Tuning in, looking for what's the name of the wrestling guy in charge of it?
Vince McMahon.
McMahon.
Screw that, man. NBA is really good this year.
We sticking with the NBA?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
All right. Well, I might tune in. I got to see a little bit of what they're doing, because it's football. What can I tell you? And it'll come at a time when, although we have basketball, my dry spell, and I will have beaten my poor Madden game to death. So I'll even need a reprieve from that.